Hello everyone. Here we are with the sixth part of our UGC NET English class. In the last class, we talked about the Old English or the Anglo-Saxon period. With today's lecture, we will cover the Middle English period, language and also the peculiarities of Middle English literature. The Middle English period starts from 1066 AD and it lasted till about 1400 AD. So the Old English period had come to its end with the Norman conquest of England in 1066. When we talk about the Norman conquest of England, the Normans, we know the Normans means Northmen. Normandy was a region of France. So people from France came and defeated the English ruler. The Normans defeated the English rulers in a famous battle called the Battle of Hastings. So why this battle happened? There was a reason for the battle. Especially the ruler, the last Anglo-Saxon king, whose name was Edward the Confessor. Edward the Confessor was the last Anglo-Saxon king. He had a connection with the Norman rulers because Edward the Confessor was not a strong and a powerful ruler. He was a mild and a weak ruler. So he always needed help from the Norman army, Norman rulers, in order to protect his country, his land, England. So Edward always sought help from the Norman rulers. He had also familial relationship with the Norman rulers. And in order to show his thanks to the Norman help that he had been getting, what Edward did, he promised that after his death, he would give his land, his country, his throne to the Norman ruler, William the Conqueror. But at his deathbed, Edward refused to give his land to the Norman people, especially to William. And what he did, he gave the throne to his brother-in-law, Harold. To his brother-in-law, Harold. And this irritated William, the Duke of Normandy. So this was the reason for the Norman conquest, especially the Battle of Hastings. So let's read this idea. The Battle of Hastings, 1066, between the Normans and Harold and his Anglo-Saxon army. So the Normans, that is people from France, defeated the ruler Harold and his Anglo-Saxon army. And after this, the Middle English period began. After this, the Middle English period began and we see the influence of French culture dominating the people of England. Thus, the idea of feudalism. The feudalism ideas came to Britain through the Norman conquest. And after the coming of the French, the sophisticated people, especially the rulers, kings, and everyone, used the French and the Latin language. But the common people, the peasantry of the English land, used English because English was not considered a sophisticated language at that time, and they refer to English as a vulgar tongue, English as vulgar language, and they consider French and Latin superior to English. So many events happened during the Middle English period. So when we say events, we could change it with the tragedies, because so many tragedies, whether in the form of civil wars or in the form of diseases or some famine or the others. So starting with the Great Famine in England, the Great Famine lasting from 1315 to 1317, 1315 to 1317. So this famine was afflicting not only England but Europe in general because of especially crop failure that resulted. That came as a result of bad weather. So as from bad weather, there was a continuous crop failure, and that led to the Great Famine in England also from 1315 to 1317. Another tragedy along with this was, the Hundred Years' War. The Hundred Years' War between France and England. And after the Norman Conquest, we could see the two forces, the armies of France and England, always indulging in wars. So the 100 years continuous war started during this Middle English period, especially between 1337 to 1453. So 1337 to 1453, there was the 100 Years' War between France and England. So remember the countries, don't forget, especially this, during the Middle English period. So it is easy to remember the countries, France and England. Another tragedy, happened along with the 100 Years' War. In 1348, the Bubonic Plague or the Black Death reached England. So this tragedy is in the form of a disease, Bubonic Plague, and it took the lives of so many people. And the Bubonic Plague was also called the Black Death because after the infliction of this disease, the skin of the people showed some black spots, so some black marks appear on the skin, and because of that reason, the disease is also called Black Death. After the Bubonic Plague, it was the turn of the peasant revolt. The peasant revolt that happened in 1381. Remember the year 1381, the peasant revolt. This revolt, especially led by the peasants, the farmers of the country, that was against Richard II's attempt to collect a poll tax. So the ruler Richard II attempted to collect tax. He came up with different ideas of tax, especially he had to find money for the continuously running war. So the high taxes he really needed to support the war. But people, the peasants, refused to give this tax. So they started the peasant revolt against Richard II's attempt to collect a poll tax. Now, the leaders of the peasant revolt were two people, mainly Wat Tyler and also John Ball. Remember the names. Wat Tyler and John Ball were the main leaders of the peasant revolt. At the end of this war, Wat Tyler was killed. He was murdered by the force of the king. After the peasant revolt, then another series of wars happened, namely the Wars of the Roses. Another series of wars, civil war between the two royal dynasties. So that war was called the Wars of the Roses from 1455 to 1485. 1455 to 1485, the Wars of the Roses between two royal families for the throne of England. So they were fighting for the throne of England. So between the group of Lancaster and York, the Lancastrian family and the Yorkish family. So the Lancaster family used the red rose as the symbol, and the York family, they used white rose. So remember the respective colors. Lancasters used a red rose and the York used white roses. So the name of the war derives from the symbols they used. The white rose and red rose. So these are the main events happened during the Middle English period. So remember once more, the Great Famine in England from 1315 to 1317. Then the 100 Years' War, 1337 to 1453. The Bubonic Plague or the Black Death from 1348 onwards. The Peasant Revolt from 1381. Then the Wars of the Roses from 1455 to 1485. That means 30 years. 30 years lasting wars. We have been discussing the historical background of the Middle English period. Now let's move on to the literary part of the period. So John Wycliffe translated the Bible into English language in 1382. So Wycliffe's translation of the English Bible happened in 1382. Remember the year 1382. And the greatest writer of the Middle English period is Geoffrey Chaucer. Geoffrey Chaucer is considered the greatest writer belonging to the Middle English period. So in around 1400 and 1400, he wrote his most famous work, The Canterbury Tales. So Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales appeared in 1400. We will discuss the Canterbury Tales in detail in the coming classes. So Chaucer is known as the father of English literature and also the father of English poetry. So the Middle English period writer Geoffrey Chaucer is regarded as the father of English literature and also father of English poetry. And the most famous works of Geoffrey Chaucer include the Canterbury Tales, the Book of the Duchess, the House of Fame, the Legend of Good Women, etc. So his works, other works, other than Canterbury Tales, he has also written poetry collections on their poems, other poems like the Book of the Duchess, the House of Fame, the Legend of Good Women, etc. Some other writers, including Chaucer's contemporaries, include Julian of Norwich, Richard Rowley, the Catherine group of poets, John Gower, the Paul poets, William Langland, Thomas Mallard, Layman. So, after Chaucer or along with him, there were some other famous Middle English period writers. So, there were Julian of Norwich, Richard Rowley, the Catherine group of poets, John Gower, the Paul poets, William Langland, Thomas Malory, Layman. One important work of the Middle English period was a poem written by Mary de France. It was Mary's Lace. So Mary's Lace was a poem written by the woman Mary de France. It was written when Mary was in the royal court of England. When Mary was in the royal court of England, she wrote the poem Mary's Lace. Another most important work during the Middle English period is Roman de la Rose. Roman de la Rose. It is written in two parts by two different writers. It is an allegory. It is an allegorical poetry. It is presented in the form of a dream vision. So written in the form of a sequence of dreams, dream vision. The main theme of the poem Roman de la Rose is romantic love. And this romantic poem was written by two people, Guillaume de Loris and Jean Dumour. So two writers. First part written by Guillaume de Loris and the second part written by Jean Dumour. So two writers completed the poem. So the Roman de la Rose written by Guillaume de Loris and Jean Dumour. And the next work, important work from the Middle English period, was Omnium. Omnium written by Om. Om was a monk. So, of course, since it was written by a monk, of course, we know the work might be religious. So, it was a religious poem written by Om. The poem title is Omnium. There is another famous work titled Prick of Conscience. Prick of Conscience written by Munti. Munti has written the work Prick of Conscience. And during the same time period, the writer or the person, Layman wrote the work Layman's Brut. Layman's Brut written by Layman. And after this, another writer, Robert Manning, Robert Manning came up with his work, The Story of England Handling Sin. The Story of England Handling Sin, written by Robert Manning. Now let's be familiar with some other prominent Middle English prose writers. Some prominent Middle English prose writers include Dan Michael, Sir John Mandeville, Sir Thomas Mallord, etc. So the prose writers from the Middle English period include Dan Michael, Sir John Mandeville, Sir Thomas Mallord. Next is an important work from the Middle English period, that is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is a major Middle English romance. It is one of the best Arthurian stories. It retells the story of Sir Gawain, a knight in King Arthur's court. So another work is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. It's a major Middle English romance belonging to the Arthurian stories, Arthurian series of writing. After King Arthur, it retells the story of Sir Gawain, who was the person living during the reign of King Arthur. He was a knight in King Arthur's court. We will discuss all these works in detail. There are three main categories of Middle English literature. So when we try to categorize Middle English literature into different groups, we can get three groups: religious, courtly love, and an Arthurian. Arthurian, religious, and courtly love categories of works. Then the Middle English period ended in about 1476 when William Caxton introduced printing press to England. So with the coming of the printing press to England by William Caxton, it is said that the Middle English period came to its end. And after this began the Modern English period. Now let's analyze some of the characteristics of Middle English language. Deeper grammatical changes happened. So many grammatical changes happened in the English used by the Middle English period. All the letters were pronounced. So all the letters were pronounced in the Middle English period. For example, night was pronounced as knight. K was pronounced. Then the adoption of numerous French words. Of course, the influence of French brought into the language so many new words. These words include palace, art, painting, army, charity, etc. So the coming of French words. Then also the use of special symbols. Some other special symbols like yoke, ash, etc. That's enough for today. In the next class, we will discuss the Modern English period from 1500 to the present.